Hiya, in this video I want to continue looking at autumn leaves, and I'm going to look at taking some of the arpeggios that we've been studying and use them to voice lead through the chord changes. Voice leading normally is discussed in context with harmony, looking at how each note or voice in a particular chord moves to the next chord, and is something that's very important in single line improvising as well, because we want listeners to be able to hear that what we're playing has a direct relationship to the chords and to a degree outlines the chords that we're playing over. So let's dive straight in and have a look at a way we might do this on the first few bars of Autumn Leaves. A very popular approach to doing this is to take a particular pitch. In this case I'm going to take the third, the interval of the third against each chord in the first 8 bars or so of Autumn Leaves, and look at how we might use that particular interval to voice lead through the chord changes, but in terms of single notes. So let's first off identify what the third is of each chord, and it's a good little exercise you can do to train your ear to hear this. So what I'm going to do is play the root of the first chord, which was C minor 7th if you remember, and then I'm going to play the minor third. So root, minor third, and then I'm going to play the root of the next chord, F7th, and I'm playing the third up at the top. So root and third, and then I'm going to go to the B flat major chord, play the root, play the major third there. In effect I'm actually playing this with a 10th, I think. That's the expression, the 10th, which is a third over an octave. Then I'm going to go on to the next chord, which is E flat major 7th, and I'm playing the root there and the third up over the octave, or the 10th interval. Then A minor 7 flat 5, I'm playing A with a minor third above it, and then on the D7th chord, playing D and F sharp, which is the major third, and then finally G and the minor third. So I'll speed up a little bit to try and make it sound a bit clearer. If it sounds a little bit classical to you, you'll find that that appears a lot in different forms of classical music, using that idea of playing a root and then what they refer to as a 10th, or the interval of a 10th, which is a third up over the octave. Okay, so how does that help us? Well, what we can hear from that by playing the root of the chord it's giving us a very, very simple way of outlining one note against the root, which is very descriptive of the sound of the chord, whether the chord has a major third or a minor third. Let's try some more practical way and see how that sounds if I take the root out and just play the third. I'm going to let the chords play for a moment and it'll come in, and I'm just going to play the third. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Stop it there. So you're not going to win any awards for soloing like that, for sure, but hopefully what you can hear from that is that that note, or that interval against the chord, the third of the chord, sounds pretty melodic. I'm not doing anything with it, so it's not going to sound very exciting, but it does sound very tied in to the chord sound, very representative of the chord sound. Now, you don't have to practice in that way, it's kind of boring, it's not really achieving anything, but watch what happens when I add a little bit of rhythm to it, and I might even play the third of each chord in different places, and you'll see that might sound a little bit more interesting. Okay, so again, nothing earth-shattering, but it's beginning to have a little bit of life added to it. And I'm using a couple of different techniques there to kind of highlight the third. On some occasions I used a scale step above. Remember we covered that in approach notes. The idea of going to the next scale step above the third, in this case, and using it to lead the listener to hear the third as a significant note, a note that you want to emphasize when you're playing. I'm sure somewhere in there as well I also used approaches from below. I might use a diatonic approach from below, or I might use a chromatic from below. In fact, let's do that again and listen to what it sounds like, maybe making more of the approach note idea. So I'll wait for it to come around to the top of the sequence again, and I'm going to use some approach notes, probably just one either side. So took it a little bit further towards the end and started adding in some other ideas, a little bit of chromatic, or use of chromatic approach notes there. You can refer to the other videos to perhaps see what I was doing there. But hopefully you can hear from that, certainly at the beginning of that little segment, I was really trying to make the third of each chord stand out. And that's also perhaps an example of how you can think about approach notes, that they're there to draw the listener's attention to the note that you eventually resolve onto, which in this case was mostly the third. Okay, so maybe rewind that a few times, not playing anything startling there at all, but it's just to try and give you this idea that if you want to create some movement in your melody lines when you're soloing, taking a target note like that, just a single pitch, the third of each chord, can really get you going into some very nice ideas without it having to be endless scales or very complicated patterns or anything. Just using the third can be a very effective melodic idea. Anyway, hopefully you'll get some ideas from that, and I'll try and expand on this approach of using particular intervals. For example, you could use fifths or sevenths or other pitches. But maybe try it with thirds first and see how you get on with that. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.